in your case, how do you go about those barriers? What process or frameworks do you actually leverage at Vodacom to actually ensure the implementation of this of the ESG strategy?
Okay, so I think in the very first thing, when I started at Vodacom 3 years ago, the first thing they said to me is go build a sustainability strategy. And I'm like, no, thank you. So the starting point is education and strong sponsorship. So our CEO, Shamil Jusuf, is the person, I hate to say it, I worked on first, to really get him to see that it's about his strategy and it's about his business model. It's not about me going into a corner and creating something. The other key stakeholder which we've used is our board. When I first joined, the Social and Ethics Committee was actually, if I could say, almost very unsettled in terms of understanding what their director responsibilities were about this. And I think Nick mentioned it. It's about didn't have an understanding, didn't feel like they had a common understanding, understood their role in this and on the way forward. And we've spent the last 3 years doing deep dives, doing socializations, going through different topics to generate that interest, that understanding. And it reached the point in the last committee where I had circulated a document around where companies should be going to, where our independent chair said, he feels like we could be a poster child because we're starting to make that progress and we're starting to show how it is. And the reason why I mention this is it's very important to overcome barriers. There's nothing better than telling a reluctant colleague, but the board wants. So you've got to use all your levers along. So you shamelessly use the CEO's name, you shamelessly use the board's name in terms of understanding that. The other critical thing, and I mentioned it in the opening statements, you must understand the business model. And the business you're engaging with must see that you understand the business model and that you understand their challenges and that you understand their constraints in terms of what they're trying to achieve, because that's how you can create the connection. Interestingly enough, I keep all frameworks as far away from business as possible. The only team who likes our frameworks is the compliance team because they want to tick, they want to measure. Okay, so what's the framework I'm measuring this against? So we just really try as the team, as the specialist team, we'll go and look. And I'm a strong proponent of the GRI. I have used it for many, many years. We look and we say, based on our understanding of the business model, based on our stakeholder inputs and feedback, what is the key things that we need to focus on? And at Vodacom, we've got a distinction. There's the integrated report material issues, which, as we know, tend to be more financial related. But I do encourage you to go and read the Vodacom one, because I really do believe we've done the proper integration in understanding that there's a lot of the E and S and G in there, whether it be around regulatory frameworks, whether it be around operating context and so forth. And then we will engage with the business in talking in their terms. And I have to say, I kind of had a little moment of celebration yesterday. So the new head of Vodacom South Africa Networks phones me last week and says, I have to speak to you. First hesitation, am I stepping on South Africa toes because we've got a team there? But no, he wants to understand the big picture. Get into the session. And he's been in the business for less than a month. The fact that the CTO has already had a conversation with him around the net zero strategy. The CTO has already spoken to him about circularity of the network and has tasked him. Our engagement was all, so Nola, we've got this net zero strategy, but on the other hand, I've got X 100 million of technology, which the CTO wants me to redeploy. I'm stuck. And that's when the trade-offs comes in. And that's where you can start to bring in, for example, to say, Ishmael, loving that you love all of this and that you're thinking about these things, but sometimes it's also, there's no black and white. There has to be compromise. So whilst we are trying to get to net zero, we also don't want to create, or not create because it is already created, we don't want to worsen the e-waste situation. So why on earth would we take a piece of technology which may not be as efficient? We spoke about the data. Do we really have the data that can say this piece of radio equipment is X more efficient than that one, and this is the emissions? Not yet. We're working with the equipment manufacturers to get that data, but we can't. So you need to actually say, okay, yes, we've got this ambition, but we also don't want to be now just dumping e-waste everywhere and wasting capex as well, because you need to go buy more. So it is around that. And he went into the thinking of saying, okay, well, I know in certain areas I need the higher and the newer technology, but maybe my colleagues over the border in Lesotho could use my old equipment. And to have a business leader who is thinking in that manner, they're replacing the fiber cables, and he's saying there's aluminium conduit. What do I do with the aluminium conduit, Nola? Like, yes, I can recycle it, but is there another repurpose or redeployment that we can use of it? So I think it's that whole long journey of getting people to understand how it is in their space, letting them own it. Every single ExCo member owns a piece of our sustainability strategy. They don't like it sometimes, but it is very clear that we're here, and I use the parallel, we're kind of, not to say we're the Springboks, but, you know, our CEO is Rassi. We kind of like the technical support team. I've got the physiotherapist and I've got whoever else, and we go and we help. But actually, the business is playing the game. It's not us who's playing the game in terms of that. So I think that's very important, and I'm starting to feel that real integration. And then the last thing that I will mention is the clear goals, how it links to reporting, and then the link to performance management. It was mentioned earlier, our energy managers must have KPIs associated with energy efficiency. Our data center managers must have PUE targets. But the senior leadership who are making the decisions regarding CapEx and OpEx also needs to have a measure in so that they are incentivized to start making the right decisions.
Absolutely.